So on this episode of Tips from the Pros, I got the privilege of interviewing Dan Francis again. He is the CEO and founder of StepStone Realty. That's one of your biggest realty companies in Texas for investor agents. So they specialize, all of their agents are real estate investors as well. An amazing organization. We're a part of it. Great people, great network, great education. We covered a lot. We covered a lot about foreclosures, the market, opportunities for investors that's coming in, how it is that being an agent is going to benefit you in this type of market, as well as being an investor. So if you're an agent and you're not an investor, you need to consider that. And if you're an investor but not an agent, you definitely need to consider that. So we cover all of that in this episode. So make sure you hit that like. All links, everything are going to be below in the description. And I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. With that being said, let's get into it. Dan Francis, welcome back to the show. How have you been, sir?
Thank you. Been really good. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Very good. So we had you on. You were our first guest on Tips from the Pros last year, April 2020, right as this whole thing started. At the time, we were talking about StepStone Realty. I recommend everybody go check out that interview. He covered a lot on how to get started in real estate. A lot of really good tips. I went back to re-listen to that interview, and there were still a lot of good things. I was like, shoot, I completely forgot you said that. So very good interview. Go. It'll be in the notes below us. But at the time, you had around 250 agents in StepStone. So from that time to now, what does StepStone look like?
Yeah, I think as of yesterday, we were at 307. So continue to grow. We were lucky to grow through the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of companies did not have that kind of luck.
No.
Not that the PPP loan didn't hurt, right? But even then, we grew both in the number of agents and in income. So I feel very fortunate for that, for sure.
And what do you think has attributed to that kind of growth this past year during a pandemic, during everything? What got that?
I think it's just that we're consistent. We're steady and we're consistent about, executing our plans, executing our marketing, executing our sales calls, and just diligently trying to grow the business. And we didn't let the pandemic stop that process, or we didn't shift gears from that process. We added some things to help with some revenue because of the pandemic, mostly the online CE classes that we now do, but which was a great stopgap, kind of fill in the gap revenue stream for us. But we didn't stop with marketing. We didn't stop with recruiting. We didn't stop trying to educate our agents and helping them grow and helping them get better at what they do. And we just continually see the results. It's a steady, slow climb, which we're happy with. We're thrilled with.
So with the training that you're providing, the classes that you're providing and everything, how do you see that's, have you adjusted those classes based on the current market, and how has that helped your agents? Like, have you seen how they have adjusted to all this?
I don't know that we changed because there's always distress in every cycle. It really doesn't matter what the economy does. There's always distress, and that's what we educate about, is how to market to, talk to, and position yourself with distressed sellers or sellers in distressed situations. And but I think that people's fears and concerns about distress in the marketplace has increased in interest in that, which has been a benefit to us. But I think our training is consistent in that it's always trying to stay up to date. And I think that's, what makes it a little bit different than maybe some training you get elsewhere, is we don't allow ours to age because we're constantly using our agents who are having success right now to educate about what they're doing that's having success.
Right.
And that's how we stay on the cutting edge of what's working.
So I wanted to touch on that because I think that's what you guys did. That's great. That it's not like the Dan and Angie show as far as these classes go. You're finding your top agents that are having success in whatever field that is, whether it's wholesaling, fix and flips, buy and hold, and you're having them train the class. You're having them give that class.
Yeah.
So what made you get to that point?
I mean, how blessed are we that our agents are willing to do that. When I talk to other agents and talk to them about StepStone and say, hey, you should come over. One of the complaints that they have about the current brokerage that they're in, there's common complaints that I hear all the time. And, one of them is that the top producers in our office won't share what's working. They keep their cards close to their chest. I can't get any help at all from my fellow agents. Man, we've been so blessed that it's so different with StepStone. And I think part of that is just we've really worked hard to create that culture where agents are willing to share. But I think part of it is that we are investor focused, and there's a recognition among investors that it's difficult to go it alone. When you're just out there searching for listings, it's kind of a zero sum game. So I can understand if you're getting a lot of listings, you may not want to tell other people you're getting the listings, because then they may start siphoning off some of your listings. But in the investment world, there's a recognition that the more deals we can bring into the StepStone world, the better off we're all going to be, because it means opportunities for all of us. There could be opportunities to partner. There could be opportunities to consult on the deal. There could be opportunities to lend money. So that I think just creates a different attitude, a different culture. And so our agents are very willing and eager to share what's working because they want more deals coming in, and they want that opportunity to be an expert, to be someone that other people may turn to for help because they know that's opportunity for themselves. So, I'm not saying that it's selfish that they're doing that. It's one of the most unselfish things that they can do is spend their time instead of working on their business, educating our other agents. But they recognize that that's just a benefit to everybody. And so what a great group, man. I'm just so thrilled with the agents we have.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the collaboration within that group, so many deals that we've done, people we borrowed from, continue to borrow from, partner with, even just recommendations. I mean, how many times do you see people just going on that group and just saying, hey, I need a contractor for this or a lawyer for that or a title company. And you can, what I like is that you can trust whatever advice comes out of there, because I've seen like the crappy agents kind of weed themselves out of the group, and then what's left is like good people. Nobody wants to screw anybody over, because even though you have 300 plus agents, it's still a very close community.
Yeah.
So I mean, I commend you on that, because the growth that you guys have had and the quality of the growth, I think, is definitely why you guys have grown.
I think people who have been in investing, outside of StepStone or prior to joining StepStone, get frustrated with what goes on out there in the investor community. There is a lot of bad advice. There is a lot of kind of sneaky, underhanded moves, lies, trying to take advantage of other investors. And, I think that they like the fact that within StepStone, that stuff doesn't happen. And so mostly because we can enforce that. We'd kick anybody out for pulling that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so, it just makes business, we're just making business easier on each other. Why does it have to be so hard? Why do we have to wonder if somebody's, telling us something that's not true to advantage themselves? That doesn't happen in StepStone. And so it's one of the things we're really, really proud of.
And I wanted to ask you, because you guys are, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys specialize on being investor agents, right? That's the specialty of StepStone. Why it's not like Keller Williams or Remax or any other of the big ones, because you're not traditional listings. They can do traditional listings, but you focus on agents that want to be investors, and that, correct?
Right. Correct.
So the only competition that I see for you, and I still wouldn't call it competition, but the only competition is these low fee brokerages that are popping up everywhere, trying to attract more wholesalers and stuff like that. Like, what are your thoughts on these low fee brokerages that are offered to investors?
I mean, I think it's their niche, and I think they've got a business model that's working for them. I don't necessarily see that as competition, because I feel like we're the only brokerage that immerses you in the investor world. And, if you want to be successful in investing, surround yourself with people who are being successful at investing. And that's the difference. I think they would attract people who are lone wolves, just wanting to do their own thing. That's not who we attract and not who we want. We want people who want to participate in that community, want to immerse themselves in the investor world, and want to learn from each other and help each other be more successful. And I think that community atmosphere is not duplicated anywhere else in real estate.
I what you just said of immerse you in real estate investing, I think is the key to why so many people don't learn. Right? It's like learning a new language. Go live in the country you want to
Right.
learn the language.
Right.
And I think being a part of a group like that, it's that you're in that country where you're learning the language of investing. That's what's being spoken about consistently. Classes you guys hold. I mean, you have I think a few classes on what like agent ethics or something about the agent side, just because you still need to be a good agent. You gotta make sure you don't get yourself or the broker in trouble by doing stuff that you don't know.
That class you mentioned. I just want to pause right there and talk about it because it's called Understanding Agency for the Investor Agent. And it's not really, I wouldn't say, I mean, it is about ethics, but it's one of the most important classes that we do. And I think one of the most important classes for our agents, not in terms of compliance or these are the things you can't do or this will get you in trouble. I would say it's a class that when people take it, it frees them up. And I think that's a lot of fear that investors have in getting their licenses. There's a lot of myths around getting your license, that it will restrict you from doing investing. And what that class is about is to show you that that's not true. And that as long as you will come in, presenting yourself as investor, as buyer, that you are really free to do anything you do, even if you didn't have a license. And so people like that class because at the end of it, they can come out there with confidence that what they're doing is ethical, what they're doing is right, that they can go wholesale, they can do a wrap, they can do all of these things no different than if they didn't have their license. But what a great opportunity they have to have their license and monetize more of those leads and just have a better, more professional background to present themselves to sellers.
And that works both ways because you also have encountered agents that don't think that they can do investment deals because they're agents, right?
Right. Oh, I get that all the time. It's fun to do a subject to class in front of a live audience. It's been a little bit different now doing it, in front of a camera for Zoom. But in front of a live audience, man, some of the sneers I get from some of the agents out there saying, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun.
So what's not to go into too much depth on that topic, but what is the one thing that you would tell agents that why it is that you can transition from an agent to an investor when you're out there just prospecting and doing things? How can they make that transition if a deal is makes more sense as an investment versus a traditional listing?
Well, we'll always tell them to market themselves as investor first. And I think that's probably the biggest change that those who have experience in agency don't, kind of have to grapple with. It's almost like they're kind of having to start over just in terms of their marketing strategy. And so that's probably the biggest transition for them. But as long as you go, you market yourself as buyer and you meet your sellers as a buyer, it's much easier to, get a deal done, an investor deal done, because once you switch to, well, I could represent you. Why don't I represent you in this deal? And why don't we list this property? Then that is where the barrier is in going back to saying I can buy the property. Not that you can't do it. It's just a lot more hurdles that you have to overcome. But as long as you're going out there as buyer, you're marketing yourself as buyer, you really don't have to change it.
That is a really good tip to have in mind. I did a video recently on why it is that I believe investors need to have their license. And I put I don't know, I think I had come up with about at least 8 different revenue sources that we've tapped into because John is an agent. And it's just something that I feel it hits on the point that you covered on the last interview that we did, that you said, no matter what crisis is presented, if you're an investor that understands multiple strategies, you'll always be okay, right? And I feel like having a license and being an investor, I mean, what really can't you do at this point?
Yeah, there's not a seller I ever met that I didn't have a solution for. It doesn't necessarily mean they wanted to do that solution.
Yeah.
That was, that we made a deal. But boy, it sure is easier to come away with something. And I remember when we were doing it full time, it was about 2/3 of the contracts we came away with were actually a contract to list, and 1/3 were a contract to buy. That's probably different in different markets, might be different today. But the point being is that, man, that would have been a lot of money to leave on the table.
Yeah.
And I have heard people say, well, why would I want to list property? That's a whole new thing that I have to learn. And I'm like, really? It kind of seems exactly the same as wholesaling. So what you're doing is getting it under contract, just a listing agreement versus a contract. You're marketing it. There's even a system built for you. You just put it in the MLS, and then you're negotiating a contract for sale, and then you're taking it to closing. I don't understand how that's any different than a wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what new skill you think you're going to need to learn. It's all basically the same thing. So why would you not? It's funny. I've talked to one of my agents, Erica Butler. She mentions this a lot, how she'll talk to somebody and they'll say, man, I wholesaled this and made $3,000. And she'll look at them and go, you could have listed that and made $6,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's actually funny because yesterday we've been doing a lot of marketing, and yesterday we spoke with a landlord, and he's just tired. He's liquidating all of his properties. He had 4. He's already sold 1. So I looked at the other 3, and he's like, if you don't give me anything, if you're going to offer me anything under 175, I'm not even interested. I'm like, all right. So I did the analysis and everything, and I saw those properties. They were built in 2011. Excellent condition. I was like, and I looked at the comps. I looked at everything. I told them, I was like, look, I don't want to disrespect you or anything. Like you said, anything under that, you don't want to listen. I'm under that because I am looking for an investment. What you're asking is close to retail. But I do want to tell you, I did look at your other one that sold, and there's a reason why that sold cash. I was like, because you listed it for 175. Like you should have listed for 190. That's what the comps are in the area. I don't know why your agent listed so low, and that's why it sold so fast for cash. I was like, but in reality, you should be listing for like 190. So I think that's definitely your best play. Let me know if there's anything you need. He's like, well, can you list it? I was like, we sure can. So now we got 3 listings, all at like 190, 200.
Wow.
Excellent conditions. There's nothing that needs to do. And in this market, all we got to do is just put it on the market.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. And now what's that? Like 17, 18 grand
18
commission?
grand, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, could have been nothing, turned into nearly 20 grand.
Uh-huh.
Hey, to me, that's a win.
Mean, yeah, it's just such a huge advantage. And can you be an investor without a license? Yeah. But why would you? I mean, and it's not a difficult process. It's, some hurdles, some classes you got to do, and a test you got to take, and you can't be a terrorist. So, you got to go through a fingerprinting. Yeah. But as long as you're not a terrorist, then
shucks.
then you're A-okay. It's I haven't had anybody try to go through that process and not be successful. So it can be done. And if you're going to be in here for the long haul, if you're saying, hey, I want to be in real estate for the next 20 years, do it now. Take advantage of it. So it takes you, even if it takes you a year to get it done, and only have the next 19 years where you can make more money more easily, where you have your own access to the MLS. I mean, there's just nothing about it that creates a disadvantage. That's what I don't understand with people who educate that you should not get your license, is I don't understand what the disadvantage is. And everything that I've been told is a disadvantage seems to be based upon a myth or based upon, well, don't get hooked up with a broker that won't let you do that, Right. And so those opportunities are there for you just to grab, and they're so easy to get.
Yeah. So with all that, having your license, being an investor with a license is hands down to me. I mean, I think if anybody listening needs more convincing, maybe real estate is just a struggle for you. That being said, I have noticed that getting your license has gotten every year a little bit harder as far as the requirements. Like, I think the longer you wait, the harder it might get to get your license. Like when John got his license, it was something that,
The mail correspondence courses,
yeah,
those are great.
it's so
Yeah.
much easier to just blow through it. There were the tests were easier to get through. Everything now they have more requirements. You can't just fail it 10 times and just understand what the answers are. I mean, there's so many things that have changed, which I think is good because it makes better agents, I would hope. But yeah, the more you guys wait, the harder it's going to be for you to get it. I think the sooner you get your license, the better off you are.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, last time we spoke, we were all thinking that it was back in April. So COVID was very fresh. Everything was very fresh. We didn't know what was happening. Everything was shut down. We anticipated the worst, right? And you've been through the 2008 crash, and you were kind of seeing that, what makes sense should be that short sales and owner finance would be coming back because of affordability, people not being able to buy. Yet everything just like flipped completely in the opposite direction. Buyers flew in from everywhere. Prices went through the roof. Inventory went way down. I mean, what do you think was the biggest thing that surprised you from what actually happened versus what you thought would happen?
I think that the government learned from 2008 that you go big or you go home. That the stimulus package that was passed in 2008 was too small, came out of a compromise, and that it didn't have enough of effect, and how quickly they reacted. And so I'm not making a judgment call whether those stimulus packages long term were a good call or a bad call, but certainly they had an impact on the economy. I think also what's different than 2008 is just we're learning how powerful the buying power of the millennial generation has been, and that as they emerge into peak buying power of age 55, they're now hitting 40-ish, mostly in their 30s. Their buying power is increasing. It is the single largest generation ever. And they have been driving the economy steadily upward since 2008. And, since after the crash of 2008, I think that's just going to continue. But I think some of what we thought was going to happen is happening, and that it revolves around distress. The other thing the government did is kind of pushed back distress, which may prove that it will lessen the impact. I think if they hadn't done that, there would have been probably a lot more foreclosures if they had not done foreclosure moratoriums. You could look at all the residual effects, some good, some bad. But overall, it probably will end up reducing the number of foreclosures as people get back to work. They will qualify for loan modifications, workout plans when the forbearances all come due. But there's going to be a large group that won't. And just the amount of distress in the loans right now, and particularly FHA loans, is extremely significant. 12 to 15% of people are 90 days or more behind on their FHA loans. 3 of the top 10 markets for that level of distress are here in Texas. So San Antonio, Houston, and DFW. Government is right now issuing warnings to all the loan servicers to bolster up their loss mitigation departments, to get ready. Starting in September, they're going to get flooded with phone calls. They're going to get flooded with loan modification applications, workout plans, but also short sales and foreclosures. Short sales less so, just because there's so much equity in properties because of what's happened. So there was a crystal ball miss. I don't think we're going to see a rush of short sales, but we're certainly going to see a large number of people who didn't get back to work or aren't making as much, who don't qualify for loan modifications or don't even try to apply, who don't, just communicative borrowers, which is always a certain percentage of that. We are going to see an increase in the number of homes that hit the auction block. There's no question about it. And that level of distress means opportunity for investors. What a weird market we'll be in, where there is such high demand, low inventory, and yet distress. It's almost an oxymoron that could exist, but I think that's what we're going to see. But again, You know,
Yeah, we don't know.
yeah, it's speculation. It's crystal ball. Is that what's going to happen? Certainly, the government thinks that's what's going to happen. Certainly, the hedge funds think that's what's going to happen. As they're gearing up to start bidding at auctions, they're going to do a massive land grab again, just like they did in 2008, and they're gearing up for it. So they tend to be smarter than me. So
Yeah.
probably keep an eye on what they're doing and what they're preparing for. But everybody seems to be preparing for an increase in the amount of distress.
So unpacking that a little bit, you said that starting September we're going to see, loan originators or loan servicers are going to start getting hit a lot because that's when forbearance is over,
That's correct.
right? So you don't anticipate forbearance being extended again, anything like that, if the
I mean,
numbers stay high?
so forbearance is always something that's up to the lender, right? The investor behind the loan could always issue, or grant a forbearance. Uh, the government was very encouraging of that and almost forcing that for any kind of government-backed loan, which is why we see a massive amount of delinquency in FHA loans. I think the government's done. We get, at some point, they've got to let things play out. You can't hold these things off forever. The servicers are, the investors really are taking some hits. They're not collecting payments; they're making payments to whoever they borrowed the money from. Same with eviction moratoriums. You've seen those extended somewhat, uh, but not for very long. So, because landlords are taking such a hit with
Yeah.
that, and eventually something's got to give, and you just got to let this play out. So, I think the goal was to just get us past the pandemic to
Hmm.
where people can return to work, and then maybe they can work those things out with their lenders, but you just got to let it play out.
So touching on that point a little bit, I want to know if you have any theories on why it is that so many people are choosing not to go currently. I've read articles where they're saying, 4 million people just up and quit their jobs in April. Quit their jobs. So they had jobs
Mhm.
and they quit. Like in a time where the government, everybody's making a large effort for people to get to. What do you what do you think is causing this level of people not wanting to go back to work or quitting their jobs? Do you have any theories on that?
I think you just have residual effects from government stimulus programs.
Mhm.
And there's always going to be some level of weirdness that occurs in that will eventually just kind of smooth itself out. You know, again, I don't want to make any kind of judgment calls as to whether that was a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, I think they're meeting the goal of bridging a gap,
Right.
preventing a collapse of the economy. You're going to have some people abuse that, take advantage of that. With any government program, you will have a certain level of that. I think probably too, people just adjust and things become more important or less important. So maybe
Mm.
having two incomes into your household just became less important. And whether or not you're going to get, any kind of government assistance or unemployment, there's some level of, we'll just live cheaper. And,
Mm.
but I think it's just so complicated and so, many
Yeah.
factors that
Yeah.
could factor into that. I think that the media likes to play that up. I think politicians like to play that up, is to say, oh, people are being lazy or we're encouraging to be lazy. I think that's just a temporary residual effect that will just smooth itself out over time as these programs come to an end. And overall, the programs probably did keep us from collapsing
Yeah.
and entering a depression. Um, Again, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. We have a long time to pay for that. We went in significant debt to do that. Was that the right thing to do or wrong thing to do? I don't know. But did it have its intended consequence? Yes. Did it have unintended consequences? Yes. And so I think you just have to take that as a whole and say, you know, are we, in the future, if something like this happens again, are we willing to accept those little residual weirdness? Um, I think that's better than than demonizing the people who have chosen not to work,
Yeah.
or to make it some sort of political statement. I think we just have to look at it as a whole and say, man, we probably did stave off of depression and we have some residual effects, but a year from now, nobody will be talking about it. It'll be over and it just won't matter anymore.
And I agree. I think my point with all this is like combining all of these data points that you're throwing out. So you have, some people that are quitting their jobs or not going back to work or not able to find a job. Then you have forbearance period ending. So people are going to have to do loan mods. They're going to have to catch up their payments. They're going to have to do something. But one thing that was brought to my attention by another investor that's been doing this for a few decades is that he's like, never underestimate the people not wanting to solve their own problem. So doing a loan mod requires effort on their part. Doing a short sale requires effort on their part. Doing all these things require effort that a lot of people are just going to be like, screw it. Let the bank just take it. And I'm done with this, and they'll take the foreclosure. They'll take the loss. So, as far as foreclosures coming down the line, do you feel like that would be a driving factor on, opportunity for investors? And
Absolutely. That's what I meant by non-communicative borrowers. So they're the ones that the banks can't talk to, that won't talk to them, won't answer the calls, won't return their calls, won't try to work it out, don't know what their options are, that just ignore the problem entirely. You and I, we read the same books every month.
Yeah.
I know there's been a couple that we've read that talk a lot about what stress does to you. So it's not, I don't want to judge people in that position.
No. Sure.
I can't, the problems that they're facing are probably extremely overwhelming. You've sat with sellers in those situations before. I've sat with sellers in this situation before. Oftentimes they fight with each other. They yell at their kids. The whole situation just seems like a powder keg ready to go off. And so because those financial stresses just wreak havoc on the family unit. And so the fact that they're ignoring problems or, burying their head is understandable. And there's no way to prevent a certain percentage of people just acting that way. And I think that is opportunity for us to reach out to them and try to offer them some help and a solution and a vision of that life doesn't have to be that way anymore. You can get a fresh start. We can get past this. They're afraid to talk to the bank because they think the bank is after them. We come in as their friend. I think that's a great opportunity for us for sure.
So one thing that you touched on is offering them solutions, doing all this. So I think when I've dealt with distressed homeowners, I started marketing to foreclosures when I started in real estate because they were pretty big at the time. There were a lot of foreclosures, a lot of people losing their homes. And one of the reasons why I had much more success than others was empathy, right? I mean, there's so many wholesalers or investors that I know that are just so cold, right? When they're just transactional.
Yep.
You need to sell. Here's a cash offer.
Right.
Take it. Buy. Go to the next one, right? Mm-hmm. Where I think in these types of situations, it's like you said, it's not judging them. It's just understanding that there's been high divorce rates, right? High consumption of alcohol, all these things creating stressors in their lives. They probably lost their job. They can't find something to take care of their wages. Now they're losing their home. They don't know where to go. Maybe they have a family. So it gets to a point where a human body gets so much stress that they just shut down.
Yeah. And don't, one thing that I don't think is talked about enough is don't underestimate the effects of the loss of childcare that is had in this country, in the stress on the family unit. And loss of childcare came from daycare shutting down to schools shutting down. So you need to understand that schools are a giant source of childcare for parents in this country. And so having your kids at home and you want to know why people don't go back to work. They don't know what to do with their kids. Getting schools back open is going to be a huge factor in people choosing to go back to work. So just all of these stresses, you have to be able to empathize with that and to understand, it's difficult to understand if you've never gone through something like that, but just know that they're not flawed people. They're not just, oh, they just have some moral, vacuum
Right.
that causes them just to not work, or they're just lazy. You know what causes laziness? Stress causes
Yeah.
laziness, lack of sleep causes laziness. And until you've been in those situations, you don't know what that's like.
Yeah, they've been beat down so much that it's not that they wouldn't want to solve this problem, is that they can't even think about
They
it
can't even,
anymore.
yeah, it's just too overwhelming.
My
Mhm.
goodness. Well, I mean, like, yes, a lot of people make this, they kind of turn this like, oh, you guys are just what they call it, vultures, and taking advantage of a situation. But one thing that I've realized as being an investor for so long is that these people are very grateful that we presented a solution to them, because if we don't reach out to them just the same way that their loan originators and all the servicers are not reaching out to them, they don't know what the heck they can do.
Right.
So we're the ones reaching out, giving them an actual solution to their problem versus just let it all go to hell and hope for the best. So when people always say, "Oh, you guys are vultures," I'm like, we're the only ones out here actually providing them a solution.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I don't see how that's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, being called a vulture. Um, you don't call your doctor a vulture for making money when you get sick.
Right?
So we just make money when somebody gets house sick,
Yeah.
and that's it, being their friend is the most important thing you can do. And I'm not saying that my way of meeting sellers is better than anybody else's. But when I teach people how to meet with sellers, it's very much about, don't talk about the house or their situation until you're friends.
Hmm.
You need to spend some time making friends with them, getting to know them, getting to understand what their life is like, what their problems are, uh, being able to empathize with what they're going through. And then when you reach that level with them, then you're not making them an offer. You're not negotiating a price with them. You're sitting down with them and figuring out a solution to get them from this stressful, crazy situation into something they can afford, where the bill collectors aren't calling anymore, where they're set up and they're able to have a fresh start in a non-stressful environment where they can get back to the strength of their family unit and just some hope. You
Yeah.
really got to give them some hope.
Yeah. No, I think those are some excellent points. And I hope that you guys actually pay attention and listen to that, because that's one thing that has upset me about calling ourselves real estate investors, is that negative connotation that kind of has gotten because of how shady people are and how transactional people are. That's like, these are people that have a real issue, especially coming, after September and everything. We're probably going to see a lot more, because now they are being forced out in a lot of situations. So it's going to be a very emotional time. And if you're transactional, if you're just care about that deal and not about the person, like, is you're making their situation even that much harder, where now when somebody better comes along to actually offer them a solution, they just shut off and they're like, no, you guys are all the same. You're going to just lowball me and try to screw me over. And it's like, now you just lost your house. You're probably getting foreclosed. It's going to destroy your credit. And it's
Right.
like, could have been avoided.
Yeah. One of the lists that people, um, have worked for years and years and years is the non-owner occupied list. And one of our agents, actually, James Tankersley, brought up this point, and I thought it was a really good one, is that while that list is kind of meh, it's always been a little meh, talking to the tired landlords, you're going to have some really tired landlords. It's not just homeowners, owner occupants who have applied for those forbearances. Yeah. It is landlords trying to stave off the fact that they're not getting any rent. And now when these evictions come up and they are evicting people and they haven't had any money and they don't have a renter and they, now their forbearance is due, might not be a bad list to work.
Well, and then even then, like, a lot of people are saying, I've spoken to investors where they're like, yeah, but where the market is at, they can just go ahead and list it. Yeah. And you could be that person that lists it.
Right. Exactly.
Because it's not always every deal you do has to be a home run. You can just keep doing these base hits. Eventually they all come in, and it's just more money that just, you keep the lights on.
Right. I mean, what an advantage to you to be an investor agent when you're talking to these investors, even if it's to list their property. there's going to be a certain amount of mutual respect. If I was an investor, I owned a portfolio of homes and I wanted to list them, I probably would want another investor to list them for me because they understand my properties. They understand. I'm going to expect that they have a greater understanding of the marketplace. I'm going to expect that they have a greater understanding of how, rentals get sold. So I think it's an advantage to you for sure to go into those situations and say, hey, man, I know what you're going through. I know, what it's like to rent these properties. I'm an investor myself. I think your best bet is to list these things. Why don't I list them for you?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way because you're connecting with them. They have somebody that they can relate to,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
that matters a lot, especially
Matters a
when it
lot.
comes to negotiating. Switching gears a little bit, still on the topic of the market and everything. What has made this buyer demand so insane? Where we thought high unemployment, all this uncertainty and everything, yet people are coming into the markets paying 10, 20, 30, 40 plus $1,000 over ask, paying cash, waiving off contingencies, waiving off everything. And John does the market update and he's looked at it and he's like, the sales haven't gone down like year over year. It's not like we have low inventory, but not less sales. So there's still, every house that comes on the market is off the market almost instantly. Like, where's that coming from? What's driving that?
Yeah, I mean the increase in price and massive multiple offer situations over list price. I think that is a result of the low inventory. I mean, pre-pandemic, I'd look in the Austin Board of Realtors at any given time and see 6,600 active listings. And today I'll look and there'll be 1,700. I mean, that's just such a dramatic decrease in the amount of inventory. And it's not just inventory of resales, which is usually what we see in the MLS, but it's, restricted inventory of new builds as well. A large part because of supply problems. And so all of these things are creating a kind of a perfect storm. Demand, I think, is just steady and it's steadily going. And I think that was the surprising thing is the demand stayed steady through the pandemic. But again, so largely driven by the millennial generation, which is just their buying power is going to continue to increase. It has been increasing. It will continue to increase until they reach, age 55. And that is driving the economy as a whole and is driving the housing market. And it's driving demand in the housing market.
So I wanted to hit on that because you mentioned it before, and you mentioned it at one of our masterminds that you talked about that the millennial hitting their peak spending. And I wanted to really break that down a little because I thought that was very great insight. As far as trying to, I guess, predict a market crash or something like that, you brought up the point of the millennial hitting their peak and going until they're 55. So if you could just break down, what does that mean? They're hitting their peak spending. What do you mean by peak spending? What's giving them that?
It's not really peak spending. It's peak earnings. So
Okay.
just on average for years and for decades, we've seen that, adults in America tend to reach the peak of what their earning power is at around age 55. In other words, they start to cut hours or start to cut amount of work after 55. They start to slow down. But you move up the corporate ladder and at age 55, you're probably at the peak of where you're going to be in your corporation. You're making the big bucks, the big salary. That's just kind of the pattern of things. You make more when you're 55 than you make when you're 20. And that's just kind of a steady climb up. And so we just look at the age of the single largest generation ever. And so their buying power or their earnings are going up every single year. Their earning potential goes up. And that means they have more money to spend for sure. They have been the largest group of buyers in houses for, close to a decade now. And so it is funny because we have these myths out there about millennials that, they just live with mom forever. They did delay a little bit in how quickly they got out and buy houses, or they just want to rent forever. When they were in their mid 20s and early 20s, they weren't in a hurry to buy houses. They liked that flexibility of moving around. But we've taken it to mean that they're never going to be buyers, or that that's just not true. That's not what the statistics show. They show that they are already our largest pool of buyers.
And you're saying that also they're starting to hit their 40s now, the youngest millennials. So they have another 15 years.
The oldest. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. The oldest millennial.
Right.
They're starting to hit their 40s. So they have at least another, 14, 15 years ago of that peak earning. And then we have the rest of the millennial population coming in right behind them.
Right.
So in theory, what are we looking at? Like, there's no real crash coming in the next 10 years.
I mean, who knows?
I'm saying, as far as supply and demand goes.
I mean, I think we have to look at a number of factors, for that. I think that, it's not that, like, economics is, it's not predicting the weather. It is actually much more predictable, and we can learn from past maneuvers, both at the Federal Reserve level, government level. So I think our ability to sustain growth and control growth has definitely improved. The science of economics has improved, as the science of everything improves. But I think that's a huge factor in it too. Is just that demographic change is enormous. The Gen X generation was so small. We had all these fears of them not being able to sustain Social Security, and what are we going to do? Our aging, working population, the baby boomers are all going to suck us dry. Well, we didn't anticipate this giant millennial generation to kind of prop that all up. And so our ability to factor all these things in, I think, is just improving. It doesn't mean that it's not going to crash at some point. It could all come crashing down next year, for all I know.
Right.
If these things were that predictable, we'd never have a crash, right? If we would have seen the housing bubble,
yeah, for sure, right?
There's probably, there's always crazy macroeconomic things that could drastically change, like war in Korea. That may have a huge effect on the world economy, or China implodes. Who knows, right? So there's just unpredictable things, but our ability to sustain growth, I think, is improved.
All right. And there's a lot of people right now that I keep talking to that they're always asking me the same thing, when should I invest? Should I wait? When I'm just holding my cash, waiting for the crash. I'm waiting for the crash. The crash is coming because, the crash has got to come. So the crash is coming. What's your advice to those people that are waiting on the sideline for this crash to come?
You get out there and you market right now, and you talk to as many sellers as you can right now, and you sell the things to keep the lights on and feed your family, and you keep all you can.
Right.
I don't think that advice ever changes. That's the same thing, sell all you have to and keep all you can. That's the general rule in real estate. And so, if you don't like making money, I guess sit on the sidelines and wait. But if you like money, then I'd say, jump in. There's money to be made. Even if you're saying, well, I don't want to hold property right now. Okay, you could still make money.
Yeah.
There's still investment opportunities. You could still flip. You can still do a wrap. You could still, wholesale like crazy. So why would you not want to make money? But I would not hold a property because I'm anticipating some sort of crash. It just hasn't played out. Things just continue to appreciate. Will they continue to appreciate at the crazy level they have last year? No. But God doesn't make any more land. That's
yeah. Dubai is trying, but God doesn't do it. So I find that I just, every time people are asking me this is like, oh, I'm just waiting for the crash. I was like, well, when the crash happens, just buy more. I mean,
right.
But if we always talk about this. We have a friend of ours that he was very heavily invested in the stock market. And back in 2017, he says, a crash is coming, man. This is just crazy. A crash is coming. Pulled out of the stock, everything he had. And he had like a good amount of money in the stock market. It was like trading, I don't know, like 17 grand, 18 grand at the time. We're like at 34 now. Yeah. So I was like, kind of like a bad call there, bud. I think it's just one of those things. Like, if you keep trying to anticipate the market and not be a real investor in the market, of knowing where the market is, kind of taking the market where it's at. Don't over leverage yourself. Even when I tell these people that are waiting on the sideline, I'm like, that doesn't mean you need to pick up something that's extremely risky. Keep waiting for that deal that makes you comfortable, right? But there's still deals. Like, we still find great deals, right?
I think that's why it's so important. I tell people two things. That is, don't go with any plan in mind. Don't say, "Oh, I'm just going to wholesale," or
Yeah.
I'm just going to flip property." Open yourself up to all the possibilities of ways to make money in real estate, and then don't go to any seller appointment with a plan in mind. I see people do 2 hours of research before they meet a seller,
Yes.
and they've got it fixed in their mind that, okay, I've figured out it probably has this much equity, and I'm going to do a flip on this, and if I can get it for this price, that's going to be great. And they go in there, and the only thing they know to do now is to make that cash offer, and if they don't get it, then there's no deal, and they miss all the other opportunities that were there. Don't do any research. Don't know anything when you go meet a seller. Just go meet a seller and make friends, and then figure out the solutions to the problems. And it'll present itself, and there'll be a way to make money. And then you don't worry about market cycles. We always say, this strategy of having your license and having all of these investment tools makes you cycle proof. And I think that's one of the things we want, if being involved in real estate, is not to be subjected to the whims of the market and of the cycle. And if you have all those tools and you keep an open mind, then whatever deal presents itself at any given time is still going to be a deal, and you're going to make money. And the cycle is not going to matter. It may mean, there was a time in 2006 and 7 when what was presenting itself to me constantly was a bunch of short sales, right? Okay, those are money. Was there occasional wholesale? Yeah. Was there an occasional flip? Sure. But what kept presenting itself a lot was short sales. But that's okay. And then the market changed and other things started to present themselves. And if you just go there with an open mind and have all the tools, it's easy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And what opportunities are you seeing right now in the market as an investor? With everything the market is doing, with what we're seeing, the buyer demand, housing shortage, even lumber prices and materials issues and supply chains. Like, are you seeing any opportunities? Are you seeing anything in the market that you would be like, this is something I'm trying to focus more on? Or
I think it's listing heavy.
Yeah.
So, what you're going to find is that what presents itself to you when you meet a seller is going to be heavy on just listing the property. But like you say, who cares? 2 days later, it's going to be under contract and you're heading to a close, right? Super easy to list property right now. Not easy to find property to list, but once you have it, easy to list and sell property that way. But because you're going to find that, yeah, even if somebody in distress that I may be talking to probably still has some time, they're probably not facing foreclosure because of moratoriums, and they probably have equity just because of the massive appreciation in the market. And so what's the best thing for them? Where are they going to make the most money? Where are they going to come out ahead the most is by listing their property, right? And so, you can help yourself and help them the most. And so I'm not trying to push anybody to do listings. Even though that benefits me as a broker.
No, but that's where the opportunity
but
is.
I think it is. I just think it is. I think once we see a lot of this distress start to hit the marketplace, then I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities for subject to, for purchases, to whatever you want to do with, flip it, wholesale it, rent it, whatever you want. I think just those buying opportunities are going to be there. But right now, at this very moment, I think you should market in distressed sellers. I think you'll still, like I said, it just means it's heavy. Doesn't mean you won't get an occasional subject to. It doesn't mean you won't get an occasional wholesale. It doesn't mean you won't find something to flip. But I think it's just, if you're just marketing to distressed sellers in general, what's going to present itself a little heavy right now is listings.
And one thing that I always hear investors say, it's like, I don't want to list properties. I don't want to be a listing agent and have to deal with this and that. But one of the advantages I always see, and why John does the market update and everything, is knowledge of where the market is. It gives you an insight knowledge almost on where the market is heading. And I think if you do a lot of listings, you're in the market consistently. You're seeing, hey, I'm starting to see buyer demand start dwindling, or I'm starting to see more demand for this side or that side or this. It makes you a better investor. The more data you can collect, the more things you can collect. I mean, overall, it makes you a much better investor.
Yeah.
So when people are saying, I don't want to be a listing agent or do things like that, I'm like, it's not being a listing agent, it's that you taking advantage of the opportunities in the market and the data that you're getting from that.
I take that as not serious. You're
Yeah.
not serious. You're not serious about being
Mm.
in real estate. If you're serious about being in real estate, you would engross yourself in it. You would do everything. You would take every opportunity. You wouldn't say, "Oh, that's not my cup of tea or not what I want to do." Well, then you're in the wrong business. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just part of this business is that we, like you said, we need to make ourselves experts in this business, and that's a great way to do it. We need to make money where it's at
Mm-hmm.
when it's there, and that's a way to do it. So, is it the most fun deal? Maybe not, but are you in this for fun or are you in this for money?
Right.
And so I think making money is fun personally.
I think it's always, especially when you're spending money and effort on marketing and prospecting and generating leads, is like to not monetize on the ones that you can monetize, I think is really wasted effort and money.
Yeah, and you and I have been around a while, and you know what I mean by the not serious investor,
Yeah.
the one that comes in and says, "Oh, I'm going to do this. This is my plan." And
Hmm.
rather than learning and taking everything and engrossing themselves in it, they think that they're going to come in and 5 hours a week, they're going to make 50 grand a month, and they have one good month, and then they think, "Aha, my plan is working," and then a year later, we don't know where they're at anymore. They're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to kind of go over some tips from you on scaling a business. So you've been in business for how long now? You started StepStone in 2007, I believe.
I've been in real estate for 18 years now.
18 years. So in scaling a business to a level that you're at now you guys have 300 plus 307 agents. Um, what are some tips that you have for building a team to help you get to this level?
I think it all starts with making sure that you are documenting what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress the importance of that enough. And we're still doing it. We're still filling holes. Um, until you start doing it, you don't realize how much you do,
Yeah.
and how many parts there are. You're not going to build a team unless you know what to hire people to do.
Mm.
And you're not going to know what to hire people to do if you don't know what you do. You may think you know what you do, but until you actually start to write down every little thing that you do, you won't. And so, and that's going to allow you to see what where you can hire, see what you can outsource, see what you can, um, how you can fill a role in your business to scale up. And second thing I would say is create an organizational chart. I think that the organizational chart, I think, is one of the most important things. And it's funny, you're like, but I'm just by myself. Yeah, put yourself at top CEO, and
Yeah.
then kind of build out based upon all the procedures and all the things you do. A CFO. Well, that's still you, so you put your name there. You know,
Right.
whatever. An office manager. Oh, that's me too, because that's how way it's going to be. But until you can define what you do and start to put it in those boxes as to who should be in charge of that, once you have a box full and you can hire somebody full time to do that, then you know what they're going to do. You can just hand them the procedures and say, "This is how you do it." So I think that's the biggest advice I can give. And you can't start soon enough. Just
Hmm.
writing down what you do.
I definitely learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
What do you recommend as far as that goes? Something that's helped you? Has it been a book you've read or a software you use or something to build out the processes and do that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Traction's a great book.
Traction.
Yeah, if you haven't read Traction, I highly recommend that. Just, and I tell people read it even if you don't have a business partner, or, if nothing else, take out of it how to conduct a meeting, even if you have to conduct a meeting with yourself.
Right.
It's easy for us to get caught up in this laundry list of to-dos. It's harder to break down a methodical way to build your business, and that'll help you do that.
Yeah. All right. Now, the next one is any tips on managing a team?
Man, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask.
Well, I mean, you're the CEO, right?
Yeah.
So even if you're the one not directly managing, you've probably put in place or have somebody in place that is. What does that look like?
I could say it's a, you know, managing people is a fine art
Mm-hmm.
where you're kind of straddling a line between being a dictator and being a democracy,
Hmm.
because you don't want to be a democracy, but at the same time you don't want to be a dictator. So how do you handle that? I think it comes from listening,
Mm-hmm.
constantly asking where people are at, how they feel about how things are going, what they like about their job, what they don't like about their job. You're not going to fix everything they hate about their job,
Right.
but at the same time, just being able to listen and being able to see where you can improve. And if you make a small improvement for somebody, say, hey, I know you hated this, so we made this little system change and maybe that'll be better for you. It goes a long way.
Right.
That they recognize that, hey, I'm being listened to. Somebody's, trying to actively to make my job better and easier. And when you have, other leaders to definitely, seek input to try to create consensus. Like I said, it's, it can't be a democracy, but at the same time, you can't just say, we're going to do this. And this is, I don't care what you say.
Right.
Um, so that's my job as CEO more than anything, I think, is just trying to listen to all the other viewpoints and to try to find a consensus, a compromise, a way to move forward that everybody can get behind.
All right. Any tools or books on that you've learned stuff from?
Yeah.
Anything? It's just been time doing.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere where I've been weak in my reading is
Okay.
in any kind of leadership skills or anything like that. I know you and I tried the book and I just got bored with it.
Yeah.
But if I don't get engrossed in a book, I just can't slog through it. I just can't. So I don't know that I'm the best person to give advice for that. I would say I learned from trial and error and experience and getting called out for mansplaining one too many times.
Well, especially
And
when you have
learning
an
not to do
office
that.
full of women.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna make that very difficult.
Hey, we just hired our CFO Jose, so
There you go.
got one on my team.
Yeah, you got to have diversity.
Yep.
How do you manage choosing your priorities? So I think as a business owner, it gets so difficult because we get, the shiny penny and we want to, or sometimes we just get so ambitious with the opportunities and with stuff we want to take everything on. Like, how do you say, no, these are the things I need to focus on?
Yeah, I always feel like there's a cycle of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And when you first are starting a business, you want to add every revenue stream that you can because you need money.
Right.
And certainly guilty. There were a lot of little side businesses I tried or I started or wasted money on, just to try to find some things to hit that would, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think eventually, as part of that business cycle, it emerges what is the most profitable and efficient, and then you start to shed all of these other little side businesses, saying, well, that's a way, that's distracting me from the one thing that's, making all the money. And then eventually you get that systematized and so refined, and well, then you start adding things back in, saying, oh, now we're going to buy this little subsidiary, or we're going to, I think it's just a cycle of business. So I don't know if that answers your
So you kind of start off doing everything, and then when you start getting some traction, you start decreasing back
Yeah,
down.
you start honing in on what's working and being successful. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with that. But I think you do have to prioritize, and so that again, I think where the book Traction would help anybody do that. It comes from debate, really, as to when you limit yourself in the things you can work on. And I think that's one of the key things you get from Traction is that you can't build Rome in a day or in a week. And so it forces you to say, what are the three things that we can work on this week? What are the, three major issues we can work on this month? And you'll find that you can list out 20, and narrowing it down to just 3 just this month, because they're all so important.
Yeah.
Is very difficult, but it will keep you focused in actually building things rather than getting so overwhelmed you don't end up doing anything.
That's an excellent point. Any tips on time management? So just
Time blocking. I mean,
okay.
Your calendar is your friend. My
Mm.
my calendar looks like a kid spilled crayon all over it. I mean, it's it's
Everything color coordinated.
yeah, it's very detailed. You got to be flexible, but you got to block out time to work on the big issues and the things that take concentration. Again, kind of going back to some of these books you and I have read,
Hmm.
just the science behind your brain, that you will be distracted for 30 minutes if you distract yourself at all. And so, in other words, if you just take a quick look at Facebook and then you go try to work on something, your mind will still have that Facebook in bouncing around for the next 30 minutes. And so if you don't block out time where you block out everything, where you block out your emails, your Facebook, your phone, your text, and just set 2 hours aside and put it in your calendar, make sure you do it and work on your systems or work on a marketing piece or whatever it is that you need to work on and that you have positioned yourself for that time. That is the most important thing with time management is you know, people come with a to-do list and they work on one thing and then they look at Facebook and then they work on this and they never do anything well. And just being able to block out some time to just concentrate and work on that one thing you need to work on, it's huge. You got to do it.
I think that do you have a preferred time of day you like to time block? Like, do you, especially when you have your three main priorities, is it like you like to make sure every morning is
No,
set
I,
aside?
I usually, it just kind of depends on the day,
Mm.
what
Okay.
what meetings I may have, or I don't find the time of day really isn't as important as it is just doing it. And even if I'm a little bit tired this afternoon or I need to get some coffee or whatever, that first half hour sometimes is tough. That's the part that's just kind of like groggy or whatever. But if you just stick with it and don't give up and get through your 2 hours, you'll find, about hour one, all of a sudden you're just pounding out, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And by the end of that 2 hours, you're like, man, I actually got a lot done. So it's hard sometimes and it's hard to maintain that kind of discipline, but it's totally worth it.
And the last on scaling your business is, what tips do you have on building a business where you start kind of working your way yourself out of it to kind of regain more freedom and still, kind of that build to sell model or something along the lines like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not there yet. I want to be
Uh-huh.
there. And I always say that there's a difference between owning a business and being self-employed, and
Hmm.
that we're all self-employed until that point where you could potentially step away from your business and it would still continue to go, and it's not a switch kind of thing. It's not like one day you're not there and then you flip the switch and the next day you are there. It's a very gradual thing. So there are pieces of my business now that I don't need to be there for. And in fact, one of the things I kind of learned about my own business when we hired Jose as our CFO is he's going through and trying to understand a lot of the processes that we do, and particularly processes involve money. Like, how does this happen with closing? How does this bill get paid? And he would call me and ask me, and then I'd realize, I have no idea how we do that. That's a good thing. That means I'm not in charge of that. I'm not doing that. I didn't create,
Right.
I kind of have a vague idea of how we do that, but
Yeah.
specifically, or hey, we pay for this every month. What is that? And I'm like, no idea.
Something we need.
Yeah, I guess we needed that. So that's a good thing, but there's still certain aspects of the business that require me and require me every week and require my time.
Right.
And so it's a gradual thing, and again, it's about identifying those processes and those procedures and starting to get rid of them, starting to push them onto somebody else. And once they're all gone, then you own a business.
Nice. Like that. Owning a business versus being self-employed. Okay. What's next for StepStone and your agents?
Man, kind of trying to get me to release all the secrets, huh?
Let people know what are the big plans for StepStone?
I mean, we're proud of what we built, and what
Hmm.
we've really been doing this year is refining all of those things. Just taking them up a notch, making them more professional. We're excited to get back into some live events. Pre-pandemic, we had met with our agents once a month at various mastermind meetings. We had various workshops. So we're excited. Coming in October, we're going to be doing a kind of a big workshop, a giant 2-day kind of convention. And when we say workshop, I'm not, I don't mean we're just getting together or just talking about real estate. I'm talking about specific classes that are we're going to really focus on hands-on training, on teaching you how to use particular spreadsheets, or, coming away with tools and actual skills. They're just going to help you in your business. And so we're excited to do that. We're excited to get back to doing our live masterminds again as well. As a company, that's for our agents and what we continue to do for our agents. Oh, we're coming out with a new platform. We hope by later this year. We're really hoping for third quarter this year, so we'll see if we can make that. That's just going to increase that ability to collaborate and communicate with each other, to share vendor information with each other, to be able to just have a better sense of who the other agents are, and to be able to make better contacts, do better networking. We're really excited about this platform. It's really coming together. Cool. And we're excited to release that. So that'll be a big addition to what our agents are able to do within StepStone. So we're very excited about that. As a company, we're looking to expand. We have a plan to next year start to expand the number of cities that we're in, and the year after that expand the number of states that we're in. And so we want to continue to grow and we think of StepStone as an exclusive club where you can do deals fairly and honestly with each other, where you can rely on each other, where you can get information from each other. The more people in that club, the better off we're all going to be.
So this coming workshop that you're planning in the fall, is this for everybody or just for your StepStone agents?
It's just for StepStone agents, exclusive for our StepStone agents. It's definitely a benefit or perk of being a StepStone agent is that kind of training. I always make it clear that we're not a coaching program. We don't intend to be a coaching program. But that doesn't mean we don't want to learn. That doesn't mean we don't want to continue to hone in our skills and continue to improve and to continue to learn from each other. And that's really what this I don't know if to call it a workshop or a convention, but what this is an opportunity for our agents to get together, to network, to get to know each other, but also just to come out with massively improved skills. We're putting just a giant emphasis this time around on creating classes, or getting agents, our agents who are having success to share, how do they do their KPIs? How do they track their sales calls? What kind of techniques have they learned in their cold calling? Let's practice them together. Those kind of classes, to where when you come away from this convention, you are going to be like, what, I'm ready to go. I've got so much to work on. I got so much that I can add to what I'm doing. This is going to make me more successful. I can't imagine anybody coming away with this not thinking I can be more successful now.
Yeah. No, and that collaborative brain power that's going to be there of big investors, new people, different areas of commercial, residential, buy and hold, fix and flips, land, owner finance. I mean, the amount of collaboration and brain power there, I think it's going to be insane.
There's going to be classes there where I don't even know what they're doing. I've been doing this for 18 years, and could I evaluate, how successful short-term rental is going to be? No, I don't have any idea, but there's people in our brokerage that do, and that can provide and they can provide those skills and can help us out. So there's no shortage of information and things to learn in real estate investing. That's what makes it so fun and so exciting, is that for a lifetime you can continue to add to your skill set and continue to add to your tool chest, and continue to create new ways of making more money.
So if somebody, listening wanted to find out more about StepStone or find out how to join or anything, where's the best place for them to go? What's the best thing for them to do?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to go to our website, StepStone Texas, all spelled out, StepStoneTexas.com. Right there on the front page, if you're like, man, I want to just hear in detail everything about your brokerage, right there on the front page, you sign up for one of our Learn About StepStone meetings. We do them on Zoom every Wednesday. We rotate between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. So if you're working or whatever, you can find a time that works for you. We're going to get on Zoom. We're going to, got a presentation. Doesn't take long, 15 minutes, just kind of tell you everything you get with StepStone, what our commission splits are. We want to make sure that we have plenty of time to answer questions and we're just trying to explore together whether it's a good fit for you. And, what, you want to know what you're going to get, what the opportunity is. And I think you'll like hearing it, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. We're not expensive. We're not, but we do give a lot. And I think, and if nothing else, just being a part of that community, I think you'll find is going to be worth it.
Yeah, tremendous. And the workshops that you do consistently, are those open for everybody or just StepStone agents?
No, again, just StepStone agents. Yep. So we do want to, there to be a perk. We do continuing education classes, CE classes for agents on investor topics, which is a lot of fun, like I said, because so many agents out there, I think it's just, just don't understand investing, and so they're scared of it. And that's why they have such a poor view of investors, is because they do think they're vultures, or they're doing illegal or shady things. And but they always enjoy our CE classes because they come in there thinking that, and then their eyes are open to the possibility, and they're used to going to CE classes that tell them all the things they can't and shouldn't do, and we get to do CE classes and tell them all the things they can and should do, and so that's a lot more fun. But and those are open to anybody. You don't even have to be an agent. You can join one of those classes. You just want to hear about the topic, like subject to or wholesaling or whatever it is. But in our agents get those for free. We do charge $20 to the general population to attend one of those, but our agents get those for free, and sometimes they'll watch them 2 or 3 times just to try to understand everything that's going on with them. But that's the only thing that we keep open to the public. If you come to one of our Learn About StepStone Zoom meetings, then you can come to one of our masterminds for free. So once we start going back live, you can join one of those, come have some lunch with us, hear a guest speaker or discussion topic or something to get you on the cutting edge of what's working in the real estate community, and get to network, meet some of the other agents. It's a good way to also kind of explore if you're still kind of on the fence after that meeting. Is this the right place for me?
Right.
That'll be a good opportunity for you to do that. But other than that, the masterminds are exclusive to our agents, and the workshops are always exclusive to our agents and their business partners and spouses. So I want to, make sure that that's clear too. It's not, you don't have to leave your husband at home. You
can attend to.
Yeah.
Any parting words?
Man, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and chat. It's always fun. And, I am excited about real estate. I'm excited about what's coming down the pipe. I think we got a great opportunity to help a lot of people that are going to need it. So, I hope you'll dive right in, start your marketing and start calling today. You can never do that soon enough. You can continue to learn forever, but you need to start marketing and start talking to sellers today. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Excellent advice. Well, there you have it, folks. A lot of amazing tips. I definitely recommend you go back and re-listen to this, especially as you grow in your business, because there's a lot of things that are going to affect you at different stages. And if you haven't already, I don't know what you're waiting for to get your license. And if you have your license and you're not an investor, what are you waiting for to be an investor? All the links to joining StepStone and getting a hold of Dan are going to be in the description below. And as always, ask us any of your questions, anything you need. We're here to help. And thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. So make sure you check out this episode over here on what to do before you quit your job to get into real estate, and check out all this other content down here that we also put out every single week. And if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.